All I'm is asking, how much you getting paid to come here, and why are you here? Tell me why. To preach about what?
To preach.
To preach about what?
I've been preachers for 400 years.
You know how many preachers?
We're in a burning house.
We're gonna preach for 400 more. Then, dog, if we're gonna preach for 400 more, we're gonna stay slaves for 400 more. We're gonna stay slaves for 400 more years.
I don't preach slavery. I preach Jesus' liberation.
Jesus' liberation.
Aloha, and I just wanted to share that little clip right now to start this off and add to the topic of the last video and kind of ball it up into these other aspects that I had added to it after the video and boil it all down to really the intention. So yesterday I spoke of conscious gentrification and how there's an orchestrated new age out there. So just as much as there's an orchestrated new age, which is designed to dull down to pretty much like what whitewashing does to the diverse cultures, and what the lack of connecting to your culture does to the individual and the collective and the individual cultures. It actually steals the power away. It dulls your vibration. It waters everything down. So we are being watered down on the soul, the mind, and the body. We are being watered down with our connections to the consciousness overall. Our divine feminine, our divine masculine, our conscious and subconscious relationships are being dulled down by the mainstream media, by the university system, by the scientism community, by that or mind control program, by the Hollywood industry that puts these actors, like Al Sharpton is an actor. When they appear on the mainstream media, they are actors. People like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, all these people who are still appearing on CNN, MSNBC, and all these Fox News channels, they are appearing on there to channel the energy of a particular movement, a focus, and channel it into an idea, and that idea is ultimately based upon limitation. Just like the Black Lives Matter so-called movement being funded by George Soros, it takes the actual energy of an Aboriginal American movement, understanding the melanated storyline that actually brings light to the colonial program as a whole. It takes that focus, it takes that energy and channels it into a limitation. It channels it into a label that can be molded and shrunk down and combated against. So the limitations of Black Lives Matter, you can expand it as far as you want. You can expand it first off to it's not an empowered space. It's making it a statement. Now, I'm not saying that it's like all bad. Overall, like personally, how I see it is that it is ultimately designed to be a downward spiral, because you're already starting off on a victimized space. You're not starting off on an empowered reality. So the good thing is that it does bring awareness to the situation. But if it brings awareness to the situation within a box of limitation, then it's not really doing much. It's designed to fail. It's already starting off saying black. Okay, I understand using that terminology, but it really doesn't empower the people when you have the potential of realizing the deeper storyline of the melanated people and the whole colonial universe. And specifically in the United States, the Aboriginal Americans that are being labeled as African American and black and so on and so forth. This is garbage. So just as much as that is an entire mentality that is used to channel energy into a box of limitation, you have actual people. So you have movements that channel energy into a dumpster. You have actual people who are being empowered by groups of people that in fact channel that energy into another dumpster. Al Sharpton is one of these dumpster channelers that is out there to whitewash any kind of thought patterns and have people be stuck in the box. This video shows the disconnect of the people on the streets and the actors, these activists like Al Sharpton and all these other Hollywood actors who are trying to get involved in so-called politics or activism and shit like that. This is a design that it's systematic, just like George Soros being in the Black Lives Matter. And overall, my main point is what I wanted to relate it to the overall empowerment and how we go in sections. We go in sections of ourselves. So in order to understand anything, you have to be aware that there's an understanding instead of being caught up in the system. Like me, when I got out of the military, before I got out, I was actually becoming aware that there was something horribly wrong with the way the system is run after being inside of that system. So when I got out and jumped straight into the Occupy movement and started protesting and speaking with people, and I was actually learning. So I was gaining an understanding of the situation, and I was projecting my own perspectives on the world based upon my understandings. The reasons why I left that engaged reality is because I started to realize that there was a spiritual warfare going on. And in order to understand the spiritual warfare that actually encompasses this physical and intellectual or psychological warfare, I had to first understand what the spirit is. And I had no religious background and so on and so forth. So I didn't have any connection with that. I had to find this all out for myself. So I pulled away from that space to focus my energy inward to see what it is that is really going on here. How are we all being affected by this mind control program on every level, the soul, the mind, and the body? Once I did that, that's when I started to go into the inner standing. So I went from the understanding of myself and my relationship to the collective and the earth plane and so on and so forth, and how the colonial world works. And then I started to question my reality from an inner standing perspective. The inner standing perspective could be related to like just understanding the spirit and the soul, what's going on here. And you can see how religion works counter to that. Mainstream religions are designed to whitewash, for lack of a better word, water down the entire relationship so that energy, just like Al Sharpton in Black Lives Matter, channels that energy into a profit. So this is why you have all these preachers who make a giant profit off of their church. This is why you have this underground satanic stuff that's going on in like the Catholic Church with all this pedophilia rings and all this stuff that's happening with these cardinals and these other high-ranking Catholic priests, because they're ultimately using that's that energy that is connecting people directly to the soul. It's being used for the polar opposite of what its intention is. So that happens on an individual scale and a collective scale. And the stuff like the Catholic Church and mainstream religions and these preachers and pastors who take advantage of people because they're open, they're vulnerable. And this is why people can't allow themselves to open up anymore, because they've opened up to people like the Catholic Church, and then that Catholic Church is just taking advantage of them. And then they make a profit. So overall, we are being taken advantage of by this parasitic consciousness that can only stay alive through our ignorance, through our separation from our organic connections to nature. As long as we are emptied out and watered down on the soul, the mind, and body level, then that allows a space for a parasite to come in and feast off of our ignorance. People like Al Sharpton, Oprah, and who are all the other people? All these athletes and all the Hollywood actors, these activists, the politicians. These people make a profit off of your ignorance, and they are made popular to maintain the level of consciousness that's based upon ignorance, based upon non-engagement. That's what Al Sharpton represents. That's what he said right there. And if you watch this whole video, I'll link it in the description. They reference Freddie Gray. They reference all these people who have been shot in the streets by the police, and they reference this basically as a genocide of today. They've referenced this stuff, and he says that's your problem. See, that's the thing. He can say that, and that comes out naturally for him because he's an actor. He's a job. That's a job for him. He has zero connection to what's really going on. So he actually giving him the highest benefit of the doubt. He thinks he's doing something good. Most people, when you're up that high, you know exactly what you're doing. Why you know your limitations. You know if you say something that is out of the ordinary from your regular flow, then you will be taken out or brushed to the side, whatever it is. So these are those people that get bought and paid for, just like even actors who start speaking about things and then all of a sudden they disappear. And even musicians like the Fugees, and look how the system treats Lauryn Hill. It's a good example right there. Look at what happened to Michael Jackson. Look at all this stuff that's going on with these people who start to speak out against the system itself, because the system is based upon distraction. All these vloggers and all these young kids that have millions of subscribers, and they're out there, that they're put on that trending page because the trending consciousness is based upon creating that level of energy that is either based upon distraction or going deeper into the mind control program, the physical focus reality, the not at all engaging in your reality. So Al Sharpton plays that role of, well, yeah, we're engaged, we're doing stuff, but ultimately we're pretty much just fucked. We just have to keep praying to Jesus for the rest of our lives, and we can never engage in our reality. There's no action required. This is where I wanted to transition from the understanding to the overstanding. The system of mind control and parasitism wants to max you out at an understanding. This is where the new age comes in, the artificial new age. So right after the Occupy protest time frame, I jumped into questioning my reality, and I wasn't going into religion because I already had an intuition about that space. So I knew that wasn't the track for me. There was something else. So what's available and what was available at that time was these new age tentacles that are they're all over the place. And it feels good because they are talking about real issues and so on and so forth. And it goes into, stuff that matters in a sense. And like I said in previous videos, they can't sell you everything. It has to be, the lie has to be mixed in with the truth, because in order for you to buy whatever it's being sold. So when I was vulnerable and open to looking for information in 2011, end of 2011, into 2012, I started opening that book to myself at the end of 2011, in the middle of the Occupy time frame. And then throughout 2012 up until today. And the first thing that was available was the New Age. As soon as I went in there, that's when I saw, and I referenced in the last video, The Secret. And I was like, I can see what this is saying. I know what it's talking about as far as our relationship to all that is, and our ultimate power connections to energy as a whole, and as a manifestation of the soul, the mind, and the body, the conscious and subconscious reality. This is how, when we tune in, we can start working with the universe as opposed to being subjected to it. So I understand that part. The part that really stuck out and made me understand even more was how they were selling that shit. They commercialized it. They tried to tell you that now that you know about the law of attraction, now you can attract a fucking Ferrari. You can attract the love of your life. It's like it's all about sucking you into a deeper layer of the materialistic, synthetic version of reality, and just keeping that ball rolling, that of the past, and just actually expanding it. So once I started to see that was my automatic clue to pay attention to how this new age is affecting people. Get the information that I needed that connected to deeper layers of understanding, deeper teachers and deeper perspectives, and also keep an eye out, an equal eye out, an overstanding of what the new age is for. So that's like been 7 years now. Jeez, 6 years now. So 2011 to today. It's been about 6 years I've been observing this. And now I can see, I had a conversation with a friend last night where we were talking about this. And I broke it down to the understanding, understanding, and overstanding perspective in reference to what the new age is designed to do. So since the level of consciousness, like I said in previous videos, the system of control, the parasitic consciousness, just like a parasite inside the body, the actual body, the parasitic consciousness on the etheric realm, the disembodied realm that works on our relationship to our higher selves, that parasitic consciousness needs to adjust only, it maxes out at the level of consciousness of the people. So it can't go too high and it can't go too low. Otherwise it'll die. It has to stay in a sweet spot of ignorance in the human consciousness. So it has to sell the truth with the lies. The parasitic consciousness is selling the new age movement because the level of consciousness of humanity is raising out of the physical limitation programs and into the understanding of the soul and the connection with like the Most High Spirit, the Spirit in us all, that we are not limited to the physical body anymore. So in order to keep us from even realizing that that existed, we were channeling our energy into mainstream religions in the past. This is the intention of mainstream religion, to take that, not only to take and focus that energy, but to take that energy and keep it away from allowing people to expand outside of the control grid. So now that we've raised our level of consciousness outside of the mind control of the mainstream religions, the new age religion has now been pre-positioned, just like these activists and Al Sharpton and so on and so forth, to do the same thing. Channel that energy into a dumpster fire and allow the system to run for you, keeping us lazy and distracted, and allowing the system to continue to expand around our ignorance, thinking that we are, this is like the poison coated with sugar, thinking that we are getting, something positive because we get that sugar fix. But 10, 20, 30 years down the line, we're going to hit that poison center, that poison core, and it'll affect us. People will die, people get sick, and we've lost decades investing our energy into a lie. This is the design of the time stealers. The time stealers I reference as the parasitic consciousness. They keep you vested in the idea of the future. Slowing down time is the focus. They have to, in order to slow down time, because they have all the time in the world. I say they in reference to the disembodied energy of the parasitic consciousness. They, in a sense that it it doesn't have any connection. It's to the umpteenth degree of having zero connection to the Most High Spirit. It makes its money, energetic money, off of the ignorance of the people. And as long as people are ignorant of their relationship to time and consciousness, time will go slower, and time will allow that slowness of time, which is actually consciousness's lack of expansion through our experience. The parasite can live longer. It can live longer in our lack of expansion. But if we continue to expand, you are releasing this density. You are releasing these lower vibrations of this parasitic consciousness, and how it keeps it alive, just like kind of like the mainstream religion, is that it keeps us stuck in this animalistic consciousness behavior and reality, where they put these empty people out as your leaders. They put these empty actors in your face and give them millions of dollars. They put these empty athletes on television. They put these empty talk show hosts on there to interview all these people and keep that program going, so you can sell that program to your next generations, your children. And that's how time gets affected overall. So this system is playing the numbers. It's not so much about the individual sections that's part of it, that are controlling, that we are allowing to control us. It's about the overall web of clutter that keeps us from understanding our true connections to ourselves. And like I said in the last video, terminologies are huge. Language is huge. You are literally bringing your reality into life, and like to life, when you add language to it. So when you speak it, when you give that word, so speaking words of limitation, like Al Sharpton says, and there's nothing wrong with prayer. Prayer is another form of like connecting, but the way it's channeled, like commercial prayer, like what he's talking about, that's a different energy. But so they want to keep people in that commercial energy instead of connecting directly. So it's about keeping a middleman, some kind of somebody who's just going to make a profit off of you, basically, in between your understanding and overstanding. Because it's I won't say it's easy, but it's available to understand how the genocidal colonial program has affected humanity. We're not even human anymore. We've been downgraded to an animalistic consciousness with the evolutionism mentality, thinking that you come from monkeys. We've been downgraded from our own humanity. There's a very definite difference between the animal consciousness and human consciousness, and it exists in the space of the soul and the spirit and your potential in relationship to the earth plane, this realm. That music, in a sense, it's like the difference between the alphabet and actually producing like an opera, or producing classical music. So human consciousness is like an opera, or the classical music of, like, feel the depth of that. It's like of this earth plane reality. The animal consciousness is like the alphabet at best. It's like, take care of, your family, it's just unconditional in this relationship, but it's basic. And at the same time, you can't have the opera and the harmonics without the alphabet. So it's a part of it. But since our focus gets so much channeled into that alphabet, that simple as, like I said, the difference between scientism and science is that scientism is void of alchemy. the relationship between true science and the spirit. So that's like a half-assed version of the alphabet at best. So we are caught up in the half-assed version of the alphabet at best, never even understanding the true harmonics, the true symphony, the true opera of human consciousness. We never understand that reality because we're not aware that it exists, because we are still limited by mainstream religion, scientism, this heliocentric model that channels your energy into nothingness. This is what the Big Bang, the intention of the Big Bang is. It's just, you're just a star dust. You're not an actual star. And what that light shining in the everlasting darkness is, you're just stuff. You're just some stuff that came together. So when you think that you're just some stuff, then you're basically nothing. Because the light that is that stuff is never experienced. And this is where the whitewashing of Hollywood comes in. The mainstream media, the Hollywood, your actors, this materialistic version of reality, the synthetic understandings of culture, the pop culture, it's the superficial reality, the superficial soul, mind, and body relationship, the commercial everything. So if you are lost in the commercial generic form, then you will never be able to expand consciousness. And if you're not able to expand individually, you won't be able to expand collectively. And if you cannot collectively expand, then the parasite will continue to raise its consciousness just underneath the surface of the gaps between the animal and human consciousness, and consistently lower the vibrations of people who allow it to be. Because the further you buy into that program, this is where transhumanism comes in, where you totally hand over your humanity for formalized limitation, the actual physical robot technology. And that's when you start to worship and say, oh, well, this is why they're saying the innovation of humanity, the next evolutionary step for humanity is to merge man with machine. And take it a step even further, that's how I'm seeing what transhumanism is actually the toy that's being designed to sell you the simulation theory. And if they sell you the simulation theory, they can sell you just another version of nothingness with the idea of commercial everythingness. So that's what simulation theory is. It still has no soul. There's no essence there. It's just a computer. So instead of a Big Bang nothing, just like a rock, you're just a star stuff. Now they're saying, oh, well, now this star stuff has some kind of meaning and purpose, which we're calling a simulation. Still, it's void of spirit. It's still void. It's still focused on the half-assed version of alchemy at best, like a quarter version of that. So half of true science at best. But since the level of consciousness is expanding, they have to sell you something that is closer to interpreting what this reality is truly about. So transhumanism is like the toy to sell you another version of nothingness, another superficial relationship to reality, simultaneously downgrading your humanity into a mechanical version of existence, which is this software coding version of humanity that is lacking of the soul essence. So that's one space, that's one timeline that's existing where people are definitely going to buy into, but overall it's going to crash and burn because there's also these other timelines that are existing where people are connecting to something that is deeper, something that is of the true essence of who and what they are. All these other timelines that are existing in that space are starting to overtake the superficial soul, the commercial version of reality. And that's where I'm coming from when I address like the new age. Like the new age is out there to create another superficial version. The new age is supposed to exist just outside of the transhumanism simulation theory, in between within the heliocentric model and some kind of commercial version of connecting with the soul or spirit. So enter in Oprah Winfrey and Deepak Chopra and Eckhart Tolle and Abraham Hicks and all of them. And like I said, individually, the information that they're sharing, it has a meaning. Just like Black Lives Matter, it has a meaning, but it's not so much. That's not the only storyline that's going on. It's how the system utilizes it. It's how it's being said and why it's being said. What they're saying, like what Eckhart Tolle talks about, what Deepak Chopra talks about, what some of these like Abraham Hicks is saying, like that information, when you utilize it for yourself to understand deeper parts of yourself, it has a meaning, it has a purpose, it can help. At the same time, there's 0 degrees of separation between those programs and this system of control that is intelligent, that is going to use intelligence against us to keep us dormant, dormant. So this is the difference between the understanding and the overstanding. The understanding, how I'm seeing it, is maxing out your self-empowerment, understanding the depths of the soul and the spirit to the best of your abilities, and not being weighed down so much by the destructive and self-destructive reality, the destructive intelligence and the parasitic programming. Releasing that. That's like the ultimate understanding of this reality and self-empowerment. The thing is, we are not here only to understand ourselves. We are here also to have relationships with other selves. And in order to have relationships with other people, you have to have an overstanding of what that relationship is. This is where this parasitic consciousness really works from. It works in the overstanding of the relationship that humanity has to the earth plane as a whole. And it keeps people from going into the depths of the overstanding by being distracted with the maxing out points of the understandings, like politics and mainstream religion and voting and Al Sharpton and all that other stuff. It keeps people with that in that vibration of understanding, and in the understanding vibration of the orchestrated new age, the channeling limitations, the Oprah Winfreys, the people who are out there to tell you that all you have to do is just be love and light and allow the universe to just fuck over everybody else just like it's been doing, and it'll fix itself. That is self without action. That is the understanding space. The thing is, that's the higher mind. So you can get into the higher mind, but when you get into that space, you're still growing. This is why I don't like using terms like woke or awake and all that other shit, because it's a constant journey. And if you think you're woke, you think you expanded your consciousness, or you're your higher self, or that's what this new age shit is about, to get you thinking that your job is done. Why? In comparison to the person or the people you used to affiliate with, the person you used to be. That's not how it works. It's an everlasting process that we are on. We will forever be learning and growing. So the new age world wants to sell you stop signs, pretty, fluffy, fairy dusty stop signs that feel good, because you've been feeling like shit for your entire life before that. But that doesn't mean that you stop there, because that at best you're at an understanding But you are not disconnected from your brothers and sisters on the other side of the earth plane who are being bombed by the system that you are still hoping that will change for the better. It's not designed to change for the better. It's designed to get more intricate in its destructive intelligence based upon the ignorance and lack of action of the people who are within that system. The lack of overstanding how this entire situation is designed. This spiritual warfare. So the understanding maxes out at the higher mind. When you get to that space, then you are faced with the choice to, and this is not like an obligation, because overall everybody is on their own journey doing this stuff their own way. So they have the choice to do whatever it is that they want to do. My perspective and my work, my art, is focused on helping people see that there's something more. There's this overstanding that exists when you take your soul work and you activate it for the betterment of not just yourself, but the entire collective, the entire understanding, the human understanding to release itself from this parasitic bullshit that's going on. And that's how I'm seeing it. That's the only way that you're truly going to be able to burn that parasite out of there, by activating your soul fire from the inside out, individually and eventually collectively. So, the overstanding, the understanding, to reiterate, the understanding is like politics and that nonsense and the control grid of that mind control. That body, physical body, self-destructive war, military industrial complex. That's an understanding. Once you get there, and this is just, I'm not saying this like I haven't done, this is where I'm just sharing my own process and how I see it, how it relates to the larger process that I've been observing of people. As I went through the understanding of politics, then I went through the understanding of myself, and still I'm in that space, understanding that reality, and understanding how that reality is being commercialized to work against us at the same time. Now that I'm in that space and I'm aware of the commercialization of the understanding process, now we are faced with the overstanding of, are you going to engage in all of these realities, how they work together, by bringing it back to the physical reality, by bringing everything that you've uncovered from the self and incorporating it into pretty much like the collective self. So the overstanding is basically like a collective self-empowerment. Self-empowerment could be like an understanding, but collective self-empowerment is to remove the parasitic consciousness, remove the limitations of the animal consciousness, and activate the human consciousness eventually. We're not even there yet, because we're still clearing out all this animalistic limitation programming and this parasitic consciousness that still exists within our everyday reality. So yeah, that's basically it. The overstanding is taking what you've done, what you've learned for yourself in your relationship to the soul and the spirit, anchoring yourself as the soul, as the spirit, realizing that there is zero separation between your soul, yours, the same spirit as the people on the other side of the earth plane, and not taking anything less, not settling for anything less than completely removing that parasite from, or helping people be open to remove the parasite who are not directly related to you in family or culture or anything like that, but from a true human perspective. See, that new age bullshit, that shit's just all talk. When they say, we're one, we're love and light, that's just fucking commercials. It's a commercial, superficial soul. It's empty, it's dead. Because if you truly were, then you would be focusing in some way on the destructive nature of all of these systems that are profiting off of the destruction of innocent people on the other side of the earth plane, and that would be a focus. But that's not even at all in the reality of the new so-called new age community. They act like it doesn't exist because that's the fluffy, dulled down version of the soul. It's not it's a plastic fire. And since you haven't had fire at all, plastic fire is just, it's the best. Aren't you warm on this plastic fire? Yeah, but nobody else is getting warm. Oh, don't worry about them. They're on their journey. They'll get there on their own. Don't just stay focused on that's the whitewashing, the dulling down of the true soul. The same way the mainstream, politically correct pop culture dulls down your actual culture, your actual relationship to nature. It dulls it all down, and that's the intention of this synthetic version of reality, is to separate you from spirit, to normalize you, to separate you from nature, and make you buy into something that is easy, to make you buy into something that is simple, because in that easy and simple process, you're ignorant and you still have gaps in your reality where these parasites can continue to thrive. This is the intention of the gladiator arena with all of your sports teams, the intention of all these late night talk shows, the intention of Hollywood, the intention of these actors, the intention of politics, the intention of it's just this empty, dumbass version of engaging your reality, and it's basically hopeless. That's what it is. It's hopeless. This is why they have to channel terms like hope into people like Obama, and then have their actors defend people like Obama as if that's the end all be all of the expansion of human consciousness. That's not the expansion of human consciousness. That's just another movie that's been popped in the VCR to keep the kids from realizing that something's fucking wrong here. Something's going on. Something's off. We have to figure out what this is. Oh, but the movie is so wonderful. It's so great. Did you see what happened yesterday in the gladiator arena? Did you see what happened? Yeah, what Snooki said? Did you see what Alicia Keys, and she's not wearing makeup. Oh, that's natural. It's real. That's what it's supposed to be like. It's like this superficial nature. And what it does is that it dulls everything. It dulls movement overall. We don't actually move because we think movement is happening on its own. We don't take action, and it's not about like protesting and all that other shit. I mean, that's all part of people's journey of action. It's like me, like I actually was out there doing that. But you see a higher version of reality. You see a higher version of action. And you can be more active in spaces like the dream realm. You can reconnect with your guides. You can connect with your ancestors. You can connect with a deeper layer of yourself once you start reconnecting with dreams. But if we are constantly bombarded by distractions and escape mechanisms and limited by tools, like as wonderful as cannabis is, as mind expanding as cannabis is, it's still a tool. And you will reach a max out point. This is why you can only smoke so much. You can't smoke forever. You're not going to get super extra amazing high because you put 4 strands of cannabis buds in one blunt along with all this kind of candy THC, and you're going to get so high. It's like, no, you're still you. You are responsible for how high your receptors are, and your receptors are not limited to the endocannabinoid system. You yourself are a receptor for spirit, the soul. That's the energy that doesn't want to get focused on. This is why our cultures have been destroyed. This is why the indigenous and aboriginal people were labeled primitive. So they can set the foundation for the idea of the monkey evolution, innovative humanity based upon technology and this mainstream religion and this political version of reality that is not, it's empty, it's dead, it's superficial, and we're just distracted forever. This is what the trending is. Trending is trending Yahoo, trending this, trending that. It's like your humanity, your humanity is being expressed vicariously. This is what's happening. Like when you watch ESPN and you have these man children play these video games, they are living vicariously through video games. Living vicariously through the Super Bowl, living vicariously through the World Series and the NBA Finals and the college March Madness and all that shit. You're living vicariously, simultaneously being distracted from your potential and also living vicariously through the illusion of action. This is what the television does to human consciousness. And all the people who are on that television. And all the people who are on that television, they think they're successful because the grid that they are working on, work so hard and so talented to be on, is telling them, it's reinforcing that superficiality and continually expanding that that superficiality mentality through your movies, your public education system, the university system, the NASA program, SpaceX, CERN, all this garbage where they tell you what your reality is about. It's empty. It's dead. But we believe it because the salespeople, these actors, comedians, politicians, fake-ass leaders like Al Sharpton and people who are meeting with Trump, like the obvious truth is fucking Steve Harvey meeting with Donald Trump, talking about this is a complex version one too, because I just saw this. It hits you like in a wave, so like 3-layer waves. So it's obviously a ploy to make you think things are changing when Donald Trump invites Steve Harvey to talk about black issues, so-called black issues in housing and all that other shit. It's obviously some generic ass reality. So that exists. Then you have D.L. Hughley, who is so-called outside of that world, but he's not, saying, I don't believe Trump when he invites somebody like Steve Harvey but dogs out Barack Obama. If you want some real change, you should be speaking to Barack Obama. He's the most successful black man. If you really care about black issues, you should be speaking to the most successful black man, which is Barack Obama. You see how deep these layers go? This is on the other hand, this is how deep they have to go to combat our true potential. But people are picking up on their bullshit. But you can see how that's like a 2-tiered cake of shit. How it's just like, okay, well, some people are going to buy into that program because they watch Family Feud. See, this is a good breakdown. Donald Trump inviting Steve Harvey to talk about so-called black issues is like local airwave TV. It's like Family Feud is still on the regular. You don't have to have cable television to get Family Feud. That's that limitation. D.L. Hughley and all these other radio stations and other social media, that's like the mainstream cable limitation program. That's designed to keep people in that political limitation of, well, Obama is the most successful person since, Martin Luther King, not even understanding that the system that Obama is thriving in actually took out Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X and everybody else who said anything about expanding the level of consciousness outside of that system that Barack Obama has made his whole, he's a program. He was there to dull out movement, consciousness of the people after Bush went in there and just ran crazy. We have to look at the last 16 years. We've had Bush and the distraction of Obama. Now we have a Trump. So 20 years of time stealing. Dumbass George Bush for 8. Empty, distractive, superficial movement Obama for another 8 years. Now you have 4 years of a Donald Trump, knowing that these presidents are chosen. The voting system is dead, knowing that these people are chosen. Another 4 years. 20 years of humanity in the United States vibration is being limited by this parasitic consciousness. That's a good way to see how this program steals the time and makes a profit off of our lack of inner and outer action. And this activating of the New Age movement and the New World, New Age order and all this other shit is just another way to create limitation on a grand scale. They make the story bigger, saying that it's better. The university system and the heliocentric model did the same thing. We're smarter. Wait a second, but what are we losing here? Hey, you're a primitive. You're a savage. Get out of here with all that. If you don't like the university system, you should just get out. Oh, you want to come back? They took our jobs. This is how this system works. It victimizes itself. It says, well, if you don't like the university, then you don't like innovation. You don't like, you mean to tell me you're not speaking on technology right now? See, you benefit from it. It's this adolescent ass ridiculous. It's like you're not listening. You're not looking at what I'm talking about. So anyway, I'm just going on ranting right now. I'll just end it right now. So thank you for joining me, and until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.